They called it a failure, but Africa proved them wrong. For a long time, Africa was spoken about but rarely listened to. Reports were written, predictions were made. Failure was assumed. They said these countries were too small to matter, too poor to succeed, too damaged to recover. They used charts, they used models, they used history selectively. But while the world was busy predicting Africa's future, Africa was quietly building it. Not by copying others, not by following every rule, but by choosing what worked locally. This video is not about hope, it's about proof. They called it a failure. Africa proved them wrong. They said Rwanda was too small to succeed. They were wrong. After the 1994 genocide, most of the world had already given up on Rwanda. Big institutions like the World Bank and the IMF quietly labeled the country as economically non-viable. In simple words, they thought Rwanda was too small to matter. They said Rwanda had no sea, no minerals, very little land, and a population deeply traumatized by violence. To them, it looked like a country that would depend on aid forever. But Rwanda had other plans. Instead of waiting to fail, the country focused on rebuilding its systems first. They fixed how government worked. They focused on discipline, accountability, and long-term planning. One of the biggest surprises was healthcare. Rwanda created a community-based health insurance system. Even poor families could see a doctor. Today, almost everyone is covered. Then there's Kigali. Many people still don't believe this, but Kigali became one of the cleanest and safest cities in Africa. Plastic bags were banned. Public spaces were protected. Rules were actually enforced. And here's the most shocking part. Rwanda did all this without oil, gold, or diamonds. No major natural resources, just strong public service, planning, and leadership. So when people said Rwanda was too small to matter, history quietly proved them wrong. And this is an opinion. The World Bank's own governance reports show Rwanda's turnaround. The World Health Organization documents its health insurance success. Even the IMF now publishes positive assessments of Rwanda's progress. The country they once wrote off became one of Africa's strongest examples of what focus can do. Experts said Ethiopia's economy would fail, and it didn't. For many years, international institutions and Western economists said Ethiopia was doing everything wrong. They criticized Ethiopia's state-led economic model. They said the government controlled too much of the economy. According to them, this model would kill innovation. It would scare investors away, and eventually, it would collapse under heavy debt. To them, Ethiopia was following an outdated path. But what actually happened surprised the world. Between 2004 and 2018, Ethiopia became one of the fastest growing economies on Earth. Not just in Africa, in the world. The country built massive infrastructure. Roads, railways, industrial parks, and power projects appeared across the country. Ethiopia did this without privatizing everything. The state played a strong role, step by step. Even more unexpected, poverty fell faster than in many countries that fully opened their markets early. So when critics call Ethiopia a failed socialist model, Ethiopia quietly showed something else. Development is not about ideology, it's about sequence. Sometimes, when you do things matters more than what you call them. The proof sources come from World Bank growth reports on Ethiopia, IMF growth tables, and Article 4 reports, pre-2020, and UNDP poverty reduction and human development data. How Botswana escaped the resource curse everyone predicted. When diamonds were discovered in Botswana, experts were pessimistic. They warned that diamonds would destroy the country. They predicted corruption. They expected civil war. They feared something called the resource curse. History told them African countries with resources always fail. But Botswana chose a different path. Instead of looting diamond wealth, the country managed it carefully. Diamond money was invested into education, healthcare systems, and national infrastructure. Botswana built strong institutions first. Rules were enforced. Public money was tracked. Today, Botswana is one of the least corrupt countries in Africa, and it has remained a stable democracy for decades. So the problem was never diamonds. Resources don't decide a country's future. Institutions do. Botswana's proof sources come from Transparency International Corruption Rankings, World Bank Mineral Revenue Management Studies, and IMF Botswana Economic and Fiscal Reviews. Farmers in Niger did what big climate projects couldn't. For years, experts said Niger was losing the fight against the desert. They said desertification was irreversible. They said the land was finished. Large NGOs tried big tree planting projects. Most of them failed. So the world assumed nothing would work. But local farmers found another way. Instead of planting new trees, they protected what was already underground. They allowed tree roots to regenerate naturally. They controlled their own land. This approach became known as farmer-managed natural regeneration. And it worked. Over 200 million trees grew back across Niger. Soil improved. Food security increased without massive foreign aid. While outsiders pushed large projects, Africa succeeded through small, local control. The proof sources come from UNFAO Land and Agriculture Reports, World Bank Land Restoration and Sahel Studies, and UNEP Sahel Environmental Assessments. They warned Ghana about cocoa and gold. The collapse never came. Many economists warned Ghana not to control cocoa prices. They said state price controls would destroy efficiency. They predicted farmers would abandon cocoa farming. To them, free markets were the only solution. Ghana ignored the warnings. The country kept its cocoa control system. Prices were stabilized. Farmers had predictable incomes. Today, Ghana remains one of the world's top cocoa producers, and its cocoa quality is still among the best globally. While other systems collapsed under volatility, Ghana preserved long-term stability. But cocoa is only part of the story. Ghana is also one of Africa's largest gold producers. And here too, many expected trouble. They warned that gold would bring corruption. They feared conflict, environmental collapse, and economic dependence. But Ghana chose regulation over chaos. The state kept oversight of the gold sector. Large-scale mining was regulated. Small-scale mining was gradually formalized. Gold revenues became a major source of national income. They supported public spending, foreign reserves, and economic stability. While illegal mining created challenges, the gold sector did not destroy Ghana's economy, it strengthened it. So Ghana showed something rare. A country can manage both agriculture and resources without losing control. This story shows something important. Free markets are not always fair markets, and resources don't automatically cause failure. Sometimes, protection and regulation create sustainability. Ghana's proof sources come from International Cocoa Organization (ICCO) data, World Bank Agricultural Policy and Cocoa Sector Reviews, World Bank Ghana Gold and Mining Sector Studies, and IMF Ghana Economic and Fiscal Reports. How Uganda reduced HIV without waiting for foreign funding. In the early years of the HIV crisis, many experts doubted Africa. They said large-scale behavior change was impossible. They claimed education-based prevention wouldn't work. They believed Africa lacked the capacity. Uganda proved them wrong. Before antiretroviral drugs were widespread, Uganda focused on community education, honest conversations, local leadership. HIV prevalence fell sharply. Uganda became one of the first African countries to reduce HIV rates before major international funding arrived. Africa didn't wait for money. Africa acted first. The proof sources come from World Health Organization reports, UNAIDS historical HIV data, and CDC epidemiological assessments. They mocked Nollywood, but it became a global industry. At the beginning, people laughed at Nollywood. They called the films low quality. They dismissed informal filmmaking as cultural junk. They said success required Hollywood standards. But Nollywood kept growing. Today, it is the second largest film industry in the world by volume. It employs millions of people. And Nigerian stories now reach global audiences. Critics judge quality by polish and budget. Africa judged success by access and ownership. And Africa won. The proof sources come from UNESCO Creative Economy and Cultural Industry reports and World Bank Nigeria Cultural and Creative Economy Studies. These stories are not about denying Africa's challenges. They are about rejecting lazy conclusions. Failure was never inevitable. It was predicted, and predictions can be wrong. Again and again, African countries showed that success doesn't come from following one ideology, one model, or one voice. It comes from institutions, from timing, from local ownership. So the next time you hear someone say, Africa can't, remember this, they already did. And they're still doing it. They called it a failure. Africa proved them wrong.